Hey everybody, Damon D here, and it is an honor and a pleasure to be welcoming Ryan Garney of High Desert Queen all the way from Austin, Texas. How's
Man,
everything going tonight?
thanks for having me, Damon. It's a pleasure to be here, brother. It's so far, so good. It's starting to feel like Texas is warming up.
So I think what we'll do first is we'll talk about who you are and kind of influences that you have from a musical perspective, and then we'll talk about influences of the band. People don't know you're the lead singer of the group, and let's talk about your influences from a vocal perspective.
I grew up in the '90s was like the music, the first heavy music to listen to was obviously grunge, and I never knew that I would be singing at any point. But like I'll even go before that. My dad was a huge jazz fan and blues fan, and I grew up listening to James Brown. That was like my number one, and I wouldn't say that comes out in my influences in singing, but definitely like maybe on our live show, I was always amazed. My dad would show me videos of James Brown, and I would just see him like obviously the hardest working man in show business, right? And he
Yeah.
was insane, and I would picture myself singing. I would put the cassette tape on of James Brown. I'd be in my kitchen, linoleum floors, no shoes and socks. I'm trying to slide around and move like him.
Yeah.
But that was the first time I'm trying to hit like notes, that I can't
Yeah.
hit. But and then fast forward, me starting to buy my own music. Um, I got in the first like real heavy record that I listened to was Tool, uh,
Nice.
Anima. My brother came up from college and showed me that record, and I was just floored by the music in general. And then, of course, was enamored with Maynard's vocals.
Yeah.
And so I used to start singing those probably early high school. And so, ironically, from Tool, I listened to grunge. And grunge, I was really big on like, I had some Stone Temple Pilots records that I really liked, and I had some Pearl Jam records, and I had some Soundgarden records, but I hadn't really didn't really dive in to them. But once I started getting into Soundgarden, how can you not be influenced by Chris Cornell?
Yeah.
I mean, he's probably the greatest. I mean, arguably the greatest rock vocalist to ever live. And when I first started actually singing in a band, I was probably right out of high school and early college. He would have been my biggest influence. I would take vocal lessons and we would work on Cornell songs. And at the time, A Perfect Circle. So I was working on like
Wow.
Maynard and Cornell. I could never do any
Right.
of them justice, but
You didn't go for the easy stuff. You went straight for the
no,
top.
which I felt like was good because I was like, man, if I could at least if I could try to get close to those notes, right, then I could
Yeah,
do something.
that's
And
funny.
even so now, like I listen to so much different kind of music. I'm influenced by so many different things. Like probably my favorite singer now um, is Mark Lanigan. That's who I probably listen to the
Yeah.
most. And not because I try to sound like him. I mean, no one can. I'd have to start smoking a lot of cigarettes probably to ever get that raspy voice that he's got. But he his songwriting would be a big influence as well. I love the stories he can tell, and I listen to a lot of Tom Waits as
Oh,
well,
nice. Yeah.
which is way out there. But I love that's another one that my dad showed me, and I always find myself working my way back and listening to some of him because it's some of the stories that he could truly tell. Once again, I don't ever feel like I could write a song quite like those guys can, but
Yeah.
it's great to try to hold myself in that regard at least.
Yeah, it's cool because you listen to different things and you don't really sometimes see the direct influence, but if you kind of combine all those together, you could say, well, this is a kind of a unique thing that I do based on all these influences, right? No one's going to be James Brown or Cornell
Right.
or Tom Waits, but you take a little piece of some of this and that and kind of make it your own thing, and it's something unique. So that's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
and I think that's super important because you don't want we all should have influences, but we shouldn't try to emulate them to too closely. I would work on like vocal practices. I will sing Cornell,
Yeah.
and work on hitting high notes or maybe work on yells like Maynard could do or something like that, right? But when we're working on our own music, it's very important to try to sound like me.
Yeah.
And I don't we were still kind of early on this. Hydrogen Queen's still kind of kind of early on in our life as a band, and I'm still kind of finding that. And it's been fun, getting more and more comfortable writing, knowing what I want to sound like, or what melodies I hear that I should do, and or that I had a lot of help on this record from like the rest of the band. My drummer Phil is fantastic at coming up with vocal melodies, and I would have a melody, and he might give me a pointer on dropping a word or things, and it was really helpful, and it's kind of helping me uh, grow into trying to sound like, oh, hey, that's Ryan from Hydrogen Queen, which we all should try to aspire to have that our own sound. And
Yeah.
so
I
hopefully,
mean,
hopefully I can get there.
that's the whole point. Otherwise, you'd be in a tribute band playing other people's
Right.
stuff, which
Exactly.
that's not
Which that
my
is
thing.
not. No, it is not my thing at all either.
Yeah.
I have no intention on doing anything like that.
Yeah. When I was a kid, when I was 15, my first band, we played mostly covers Deep Purple, Guns N' Roses,
Yeah, it's a great way to learn, right? Great way
yeah,
to get
but
and to
it's,
play out.
yeah, and to play harder music than you would be able to write. But
Correct.
that's not something you probably want to do, forever.
No,
And
and I've done that, to an extent where I've done the cover band thing. In fact, I did a tribute band at one point. It wasn't a It was supposed to be one show. We did a when Lane Staley died, we did this Alice in Chains tribute, and someone asked me to
mm,
be the Lane Staley vocal part, and all the harmonies and things, and
another
it was
very difficult vocal to kind of do.
yeah. And I say I'm really glad I did it, because when I doing that, it made me grow as a vocalist, because I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And then I was like, oh crap,
Yeah,
this is really, really difficult.
this is the
And it
real
really,
deal. Yeah,
I grew as a vocalist. We did it like twice, and then they kept wanted to keep doing it. And I was like, look, man, it's helped me, but I want to write my own music. I want to
yeah,
have original music. It's fun to kind of, at the time I wasn't in a band, and so I missed getting on stage, right? So it kind of
sure.
it filled that void for a short while, but it wasn't going to fully satisfy me for sure.
And then, so for the band itself, High Desert Queen, what would you say is the style? Now, the style that brought my attention was Texas desert rock, which could be a lot of different things, but how would you describe it to all the people watching out there that haven't heard of the band or aren't that familiar?
Yeah, see, we've self-coined that Texas desert rock. I think what's really interesting about this band is we have so many different influences. We all kind of come from different aspects. Phil really comes from like what he really listens to. Our drummer, he really listens to, like, he loves funk, and he loves that kind of groove. But he's played in everything from like hardcore death metal bands with nothing but speed, double bass, and all the way to country. What's sometimes helps pay the bills.
Yeah,
So he's done it all, and so him having a huge range, but mainly that funk influence, that groove, that really comes from Phil. We really want to have that pocket, and the way that he plays kind of has a funk to it, and then we like that. Rusty, our guitarist, he's a metalhead, and I mean like '80s hair metalhead,
yeah,
which you can hear in the solos, right? Like there's no way we can disguise that. It's just going to come out of him.
yeah,
He is a like just as much as Phil is a monster on the drums, he's a monster on the guitar. What's great about Rusty is we can give him direction at times, because he can shred anywhere.
yeah,
And sometimes we're like, hey, well, maybe take it darker, maybe take it this way, and he's like, all right, and he'll do it, and we're like, oh, he whatever we're able to tell him, he's able to do, which is phenomenal.
yeah,
And so he comes from that like shredder area, right?
yeah,
And then Morgan, who is Rusty's daughter, ironically, is the one who showed Rusty like this genre of music, this whole like desert heavy rock, whatever you want to call it, stoner rock, whatever you want to call it. Uh, he wasn't really familiar with it, and she showed him that, and she's what, 25, and is a complete music encyclopedia. Like whenever we're having a band debate, or we're in the van driving about who is the band, she's always the one that knows it. It's
wow.
like kind of scary. The young one, right, knows it.
Yeah,
But and so she's her influences are from all over. I know some of her favorite bands are like Typo Negative, and like
mm,
some real dark bands like that, right? But she can kind of play it all, and so I think that really helps As we have started to kind of play together long enough to know what each of us brings to the table, it's allowing, I think, the music to evolve to something more original. Like I think this record definitely stands alone in comparison to our debut record. Um, so I think that it's more indicative of what we actually are going to sound like moving forward, if that makes sense. It's more raw. It's heavy, but we try to find that groove and as much melody as we possibly can.
Yeah, and to that point with melody, one of the songs that's a little interesting and outside of, I think, what you would expect is track two, which is Death Perception with the guest vocal. She kind of sings lead a little bit, and then you're singing together, and just the different tones and ranges of vocal ability is really interesting and something that really I think it stands out as pretty unique. And so it kind of breaks up if you had just track after track of a certain style and you guys kind of take it in a different direction. So how did that collaboration come about? And forgive my lack of remembering who the
Uh,
vocalist is, but talk about that
Emma
track two. Yeah.
Emma Noslin, if I'm saying her last name correctly, I believe so. From the band Galpa, uh, in Sweden, unreal band. But yes, to your point about, before I get into how that song came about, we looked at the record as a whole, and we were very big on. I'm from the days of, well, CDs was my thing, right? But I would listen to a CD from beginning to end, and sometimes over and over and over again. And so it was really important to me what the order of the songs were and like how it breaks up, and how we felt we have so many different influences. We didn't want the songs shouldn't all sound the same. Almost half the record we wrote in the studio, unintentionally. We'd been on the road for about 6 weeks in Europe with Fatso Jetson, who is a just
Yeah.
one of my heroes. I got to go on tour with some of my heroes in that band. It was amazing, and they have another project that kind of morphs into what they call it the Rubber Snake Charmers,
Yeah.
and it's yeah, so it's a complete, and they improvise every single night, and we were watching that, and I don't think we realized we were taking notes, but we were just taking notes, like just amazed by how organic and how natural it sounded. And then when we got in the studio, we didn't mean to do that, but we've been playing the same, more or less these same like 8 songs for 6 weeks. And we were in the studio the first night. We were getting levels on all the instruments, and 3 songs just came out like in a couple hours, where it
Yeah.
was just like, whoa, whoa, what are these? We need to record these. And then yeah, we pretty close to how we did it in one night. The only thing we did is we went back and like retracked guitars, and Death Perception was one of those. And we were just jamming. Rusty then, well, Phil cut the time in half, and there's a breakdown, right? It's a very heavy riff. We were like, okay, we've got something. So how do we get there? And we piece it all together. And then we had talked to Emma on the road. We had the chance to meet her in Sweden. We played Fuzz Festival, which is put together by the Truck Fighters in Stockholm, and they
Nice.
played right after us. So we got to meet them, and I'd already looked into them before we left, and I'd already become a very large fan, and so I was really excited to meet them. And we both, like, they saw us play before we got to meet them, and then we saw them play, and then we got to hang out, and we're all just talking about how we both really enjoyed each other's set, and started a friendship there. Well, then fast forward to that was in December of I guess that would have been 22. And then in the summer of 23, we're on tour with Fatso Jetson. We played Desert Fest London, and we did a uh, Legends of the Desert Jam session, which we had no business being a part of, but it was so cool to be a part of it. We just so happened we were on tour with Fatso Jetson, who was doing it, and they asked
Yeah.
us to improvise a song with him, and it was still one of the coolest things I've ever been a part of musically. But right before us was Galpa again, so we got to hang out, and I had mentioned to Emma, because I love her vocal style, and I was like, man, it would be great to get you on the record. We're gonna go when we get home. We're gonna record. I have no idea what song that'll be, or what. I had an idea at one point, a song that we already had finished that I thought would be perfect. But when we wrote this song, organically from scratch. We were like, how cool would it be to give a song to Emma to not just be a guest vocalist, but
Yeah.
let's have her be a lead vocalist on this.
Yeah.
And like not just, featured is cool, but if it's truly featured, let's give her a real role in the song. So we gave her the song that had nothing but music, and it was that vocal melody that she did is exactly the first thing she sent me. Now, it was all. I asked her, I go, are you singing in Swedish or something or Scandinavian? What's going on? But she was like, no, because I don't know the language, and it all sounded like it to me. But she was just kind of making stuff up. And
Yeah.
so what was cool about it is so then I wrote lyrics based on what it sounded like she was saying in
Oh,
English.
wow.
And then we kind of like, okay, how do we make this make sense? And we kind of worked together on that. And then I wrote the chorus, and I was like, we should just have you double it with me. And yeah, that was a lot of fun to do. I mean, that one actually came together really fast. Obviously the music did, but even working with her, and we're excited to get that song out. I guess by the time this airs, it's not released yet, but it will be. It's going to be our next single, and we're excited to let people hear that one, because I think it's definitely, like you said, different for the record, but different for us as well, even musically. And then of course adding Emma on that as well just makes it that much more interesting.
Yeah, that's a really great story. And so what I'm going to do now is play a clip of Death
Awesome.
Perception. And so anybody that's watching this can get a little preview of what's coming on the new record by High Desert Queen, Palm Reader, out May 31st on Magnetic Eye Records. This is track 2, Death Perception. Check it out. All right. And I know earlier you mentioned being on tour with Fatso Jetson. I think everybody could take notes from Mario Lally because he's so
Oh,
amazing. I grew up in the desert, so I'm familiar with how great those guys are, and just this
yeah.
the improv and the kind of fusion of jazz and things. And that's really great that you guys were able to tour with them.
And then
Let's
not caring about genre or
Yeah,
anything, but then also from a band standpoint to like watch, I mean, The Godfather, Mario
yeah.
Lally, handle music business. Just forget the music side. Like I'm just like I was. It was such a good experience for me. It's so cool to be able to call Mario Lally, who I've looked up to, a friend now. That to me is one of the coolest things I could probably ever do musically is be able to call him a friend. I got to meet him, years back. We played a festival together, and then that kind of spawned a friendship. And he invited us to play about 8 shows on the West Coast with those guys, and then Europe. So it's been a great experience. That's definitely been one of the highlights so far.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that's so great about music, and that's one of the things I love is that you get to kind of collaborate with people from all over the world, and they enjoy, and it brings people together. And one of the things about being in a band is you can bring someone in that you like and just kind of lift people up. And I think that's one of the things that's so great about music. I mean, a lot of times people think, you know, certain styles of music, people are aggressive and all that, but it's it's about lifting people up, I think, is one of the best
Oh,
parts of kind of being around bands and doing that.
without a doubt, we're given the greatest gift to be able to create music and then share it with other people. And we would be doing it a disservice if we weren't trying to lift each other up. But I'm amazed at how this scene, like it's funny, like you say, they think heavy metal, they think just maybe mean people, but
Yeah.
everyone who knows, right, that
Yeah.
it is the most family like atmosphere you could ever meet. Like we're I'm meeting people now. We're lucky enough to go down the road a lot and play these great festivals, and there's no, I'm not seeing the egos you hear about in the rock and roll world. I'm not seeing, but even the people, like the fans and the people you're seeing, just everyone wants a hug, like it's the friendliest group of people you could ever meet. And we talk about that as a band. We talk about how lucky we are to be doing what we're doing, and because we can't take for granted what influence we could possibly have on anybody, because we never
Sure.
know. You
Right.
never know. I mean, perhaps nobody's being influenced by us at all,
Yeah.
and and that's that's fine. But we should never treat it as though we don't have the chance to, right? So always try to do something positive in music, and my lyrics are a lot about that too. I think we have some heavy songs, but my lyrics are almost always about something pressing that needs to be fixed, or lifting up, or raising our own selves up, our lives, whatever it might be.
Wow, that's really great. So let's talk a little bit about the Austin, Texas scene from your perspective, because everyone's pretty familiar with, the ZZ Top and the South by Southwest and certain things, but what is your kind of, and I know that in Houston there's kind of a harder kind of metal, death metal scene happening, but kind of what's your take for the Texas kind of heavy rock scene out there? What's that like?
Well, I love it. Texas is very, very, I mean, we're very proud. It's probably the state that's most proud of itself, probably to an annoying level to people from outside of Texas. But it's it's a big family here as well. I think that we take very seriously that we are from Texas. That's why that Texas desert rock means something to us. There's legends that have come out of the state, and we want to pay homage to that, like the ZZ Tops and bands like that. And ironically, we did start in Houston.
Hmm.
So we were aware of like that kind of heavy, uh that's definitely got a heavier scene there, like as
Yeah.
far as the type of music that's coming out of there is heavy. And when the band started, it started in Houston, and then I moved closer to the Austin area. Rusty still lives in Houston, and then so Morgan was not our bass player then, but she is now. Obviously, she lives in Houston. And that whole first record, Rusty and I wrote, on our own. And then we found a buddy of mine to track bass, and then we found Phil. And then I think as we moved out here and started playing more in the Austin scene, it's been really good because I would say it's incredibly competitive, but I don't mean
Hmm.
like in a negative way. I mean it's just you can't suck in Austin.
Yeah.
Like there's no
Right.
room there's no room for a band to suck. Like you cannot. And I grew up an athlete. My drummer grew up an athlete. We talk about that a lot. We're always like, all right, you know, this band's on the bill. This band's on the bill. We got to outperform those guys.
Yeah.
That's how we kind of get up for things.
Yeah.
And that's what I think, playing here with the amount of talent that is in this state uh, is very, very. It's been very good for us, right? To try to compete and but like when I say compete, we're not trying to beat anybody. We just want to give off the same level of performance that people do here in throughout Texas, and especially in the Austin area, because there's so many venues, there's so many festivals, there's so many bands. You could easily just get lost in the
Lost.
fold, yeah,
Yeah.
and not come out. And we've been lucky. There's some great bands here that we've become friends with that have helped us, and we've in turn done the same to help others. And it's like I said, it's a very very much a uh, lift each other up scene, which I'm sure is the same for a lot of other. I hope so. I'm just not aware because I'm not in that scene, but in the Austin scene, it's uh, very much out for. We're always looking out for each other. Because I know some bands who don't, and they are not around anymore. It just
Yeah.
it just it's unfortunate that there was, there's egos before you've really done anything.
Yeah.
Doesn't bode well in Austin because they kind of see through your BS out here.
Yeah.
It's such a pro city to be honest. And ironically, none of us actually live in Austin, but
Huh.
it's because they're in Houston and like I'm in an area called New Braunfels and Canyon Lake, which is about 45 minutes from Austin, and then my drummer is about 30 minutes from Austin in a different area, an area called Wimberley. We're all like, we just claim Austin because that's where we're going to play.
Oh, okay.
Because one of the drawbacks from about Texas is that it's freaking huge,
Yeah.
and so like touring, it's tough to get any band that tours through Texas knows like it's like takes 2 days just to get out of Texas before you can get to another place to play.
Yeah.
Um,
That's pretty funny.
yeah, but
Yeah.
the local scene here is great. A lot of good music festivals and things that have been really good for us.
Cool. And what I wanted to do now was play one more track, the track number one, Ancient Aliens. So give the audience a little bit of sense of what this is. I mean, I really like how it starts and that at about 2 minutes in, there's a break, and the drums coming back in have this really heavy bass drum with I'm sure he has reverb on it, and it's just this kind of really cavernous, huge, massive bass drum sound coming in. So that is one of the things I really noticed. But give the audience a little bit of taste of what this track is about. Ancient
Yeah,
Aliens.
this was a track that so probably the only song on the record where somebody actually came in with an idea before we had all like Rusty came in with that guitar. That's all he had was that guitar riff. But we're all he came with an opening guitar riff, and we were all like, okay, this is a super high energy song. Immediately we're thinking about live shows and like, oh, here's a great show opener. And we tend to open a lot of shows with this one because it's heavy out of the gate. And but of course, when Phil laid the beat down on it, that's what took it to another level. And we have a good Phil's really good about coming up with the breakdowns and stuff. And the engineer, we wanted these big Cavalier, like cavernous sounding drums, right?
Yeah.
And engineer did a great job tracking. We recorded in a studio here called Yellow Dog, where Phil actually works. He's a studio drummer there. And we got these massive drum tones, and we sent it to a good buddy of ours, Carl Daniel Leiden, who lives in Sweden. Tracks he mixed and masters bands like Lowrider and Greenleaf and Domcraft, all these great bands we look up to. And he's also become a friend, which has been really cool. But he had the idea to put a little bit of delay on those drums, and
Yeah.
oh man, it really picks it up a notch when the riff comes back in. We're really happy how that came out. This is
Cool.
definitely what we wanted to open the record with because it is the super high energy out of the gate.
Awesome. So we're going to play a little clip here from Ancient Aliens. Check it out, everybody. All right, everybody, that was Ancient Aliens, which is the first track off of High Desert Queen's Palm Reader, which is out May 31st on Magnetic Eye Records. We have Ryan Garney here, lead singer, and primary lyricist, and we got just a couple minutes here. So I wanted to have Ryan just, do you have any social media call outs, any website, any Bandcamp links, any, so people want to, hear the music, and then if you guys have any shows coming up.
Yeah, so we do most of our stuff on our actual website, just hypnoticqueen.com. We do have a Bandcamp, but we tend to post all our stuff on, like I said, our hypnoticqueen.com website. We have merch and things for sale, and it has our schedule. We have our Instagram. It's probably the most easy way to like keep up with the daily occurrences of High Desert Queen. But yeah, because we do have a tour coming up. We got a Palm Reader album release tour. We're going to hit regionally around here. We'll hit primarily throughout Texas, which we talked about earlier. It's a large state to tour in, so you can play a lot of shows in the state.
That's funny.
And because it'll be a sneak preview of we'll start doing it before the record comes out, and we'll be doing an album listening party at the end of every show too, which will be really really fun. And we're playing with some good friends along the way, and then we'll be announcing soon a European tour. We're going to be gone for another month over in Europe. We already have announced a few festivals we're going to play. Stone from the Underground and Rock and Wald were both very very large and respectable Germany festivals that we're really excited to be playing. So we're going to announce some dates around those. That we love getting over to Europe. It's been really really fun experience getting over there, and we getting now will be the third time, and getting to see some of the same faces again like we did last summer was super awesome, and hopefully we'll see some more of those people again this summer.
Cool. That sounds like a lot of action coming up in the summer. So once again, everybody, want to thank Ryan Garney of High Desert Queen. The new record's out, Palm Reader, on May 31st, Magnetic Eye Records. I want to thank Ryan for joining me today. This has been Damon D. One World, One Rock.